Pursuant to Clause 1C of Rule 19, further consideration of the Senate Joint Resolution 7 will now resume. The clerk will report the title.
Senate Joint Resolution 7, Joint Resolution directing the removal of the United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Republic of Yemen that have not been authorized by Congress.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to commit at the desk.
Is the gentleman opposed to the joint resolution?
I am in its current form.
The gentleman qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. McCall of Texas moves to commit the joint resolution, Senate Joint Resolution 7, to the Committee on Foreign Affairs, with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendment. At the end of Section 1, add the following new paragraph, 11. It is in the national security interest of the United States.
The clerk will suspend. The clerk will report. The House will be in order. The clerk will report.
11. It is in the national security interest of the United States to condemn and oppose A, the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, BDS movement, targeting Israel, including efforts to target United States companies that are engaged in commercial activities that are legal under United States law, and B, all efforts to delegitimize the State of Israel.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me first say that the Yemen resolution before us here today is pro-Iran and anti-Israel. I rise today to offer a motion stating that it's in the national security interest of the United States to oppose the global movement to boycott the State of Israel. This motion will not kill the bill or send it back to the committee. If adopted, the resolution will immediately proceed to final passage. As we heard from the powerful speech of the Secretary of NATO yesterday, it's in our national interest to work with our allies to counter our shared threats and promote our shared values. And since its founding in 1948, the United States has stood shoulder to shoulder with Israel against enemies that want to destroy it. And let's be clear about the BDS movement. It is yet another enemy of Israel. It wants to exclude, isolate, and ultimately destroy Israel. The founder of the BDS movement has stated, quote, "We oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. No Palestinian will ever accept a Jewish state in Palestine," close quote. The BDS movement is not about equality. It is not about peace. It is about undermining negotiation between Israel and the Palestinians. And it is about placing all the blame on one party, and that is Israel. We do not support a movement that demands concessions from one party alone. We do not stand with a movement that seeks to isolate and shame our strongest ally in the Middle East. By weakening Israel, the global BDS movement endangers American security. When foreign entities like the UN foster boycotts against Israel, they are interfering with the United States foreign policy. The Senate passed a bill in its wisdom, S1, 2 months ago, with overwhelming bipartisan support to tackle BDS, better support Israel and Jordan, and sanction Assad's brutal regime. Sadly, the House Democratic leadership won't let that bill or a House version of that bill to this floor for a vote. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The House will be in order.
I want to close with this. As the son of a World War II veteran, a B-17 bombardier who bombed the Nazis, was part of the D-Day air campaign, it saddens me that we are still struggling here today with the same issues that the greatest generation defeated. I urge my colleagues to support this motion, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
I rise in strong opposition to this motion.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with solemn responsibility. I carry the legacy of the history of the Jewish people, a history of persecution, of discrimination, of scapegoating, but also a history of perseverance and survival. And the embodiment of that perseverance is the establishment of the State of Israel, the home of the Jewish people. Mr. Speaker, I strongly condemn boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, economic warfare against the State of Israel, and there is no one in this chamber, no one, who would question my commitment to opposing BDS or fighting anti-Semitism or supporting our ally Israel. But I also strongly reject what my colleagues are doing here today. My colleague, my friend from Texas is right. There has been a long and bipartisan history of support for Israel, and it has been so strong because of that bipartisanship. This is not an MTR about BDS. We've seen this play out before. The last time this resolution came up, my colleagues introduced a resolution condemning BDS and anti-Semitism and supporting Israel, and we all voted for it until it was time to actually go on the record, and almost every one of them voted against it. This is about politics. This is about trying to drive a wedge into this caucus where it does not belong. That's what they're trying to do today. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the Jewish community also has a history of standing up against atrocities like the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. My colleagues are trying to block us from standing on support of our human rights and American values to condemn what's happening there. That's what this is about. That's why I'm opposed to it. We should all oppose it, and I yield to the Majority Leader for his comments.
Mr. Speaker, I take no back seat to my support for Israel for half a century. I rise in opposition to this cynical political ploy. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we are about to vote on a resolution concerning U.S. involvement in the conflict in Yemen and how to promote an end to a humanitarian crisis in a country that threatens the lives of 22 million people. They are hungry. They are displaced. They are scarred by war and violence. This resolution is about them and about what we as a nation can do to put a stop to that conflict. The gentleman is incorrect. The gentleman did not tell us the truth. This kills this resolution. In an effort to prevent Congress from taking action as such an important issue, however, House Republicans are trying to make this a vote about something else. And in doing so, they risk undermining the long history of bipartisan consensus supporting our ally Israel. How shameful. How sad. The American people will not be fooled or misled by this tactic. Our fellow supporters of Israel will not be fooled. No one can accuse me of failing to defend the U.S.-Israel partnership and strongly opposing BDS. And I will be voting against this motion. And I urge all my colleagues to do so as well. I urge every single one of you to do so. And I urge every Republican who believes that using Israel as a partisan cudgel is dangerous, cynical, and harmful to Israel to join me in voting against this motion. Mr. Speaker, none of the major organizations supporting Israel have any illusions what this motion seeks to do. Its intention is not to unite, but to divide. Its intention is not to support our ally, but to sabotage a resolution about the conflict in Yemen. The vote on this motion is a vote to kill this bill through a cynical and dishonest tactic. So let's move past this charade of a motion. Let's stop playing games with this very important and serious issue in support of Israel. Reject gotcha politics. Let me be clear. For as long as I am Majority Leader, House Democrats will never waver in our party's steadfast support for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. Vote no!
Gentleman from California.
Parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state.
Will the Majority Leader schedule S1, a vote on this floor, with his commitment to Israel and his commitment to ending BDS?
The gentleman has not stated a proper parliamentary inquiry. Without objection. The previous question is ordered.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman will state.
First, you did not answer my last. But this one, Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman was not stating a proper parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state his inquiry.
The majority only has one ability to bring something to the floor in an MTR. This body wants to have a vote on Senate Bill 1. Will the Majority Leader schedule this floor and the vote on BDS?
The gentleman is not stating a proper parliamentary inquiry. The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The noes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of passage. This is a 5-minute vote.
So members now voting on a procedural motion related to the Yemen War Powers Resolution, that resolution seeking to end U.S. military involvement in the conflict in Yemen. This is the bill that the Senate approved last month. And again, this is a procedural motion. And commonly, motions like this get about 10 minutes of debate and then a vote. And after this, we could see a vote on passage. Now, this motion to commit states the House's opposition to the BDS, or Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions movement regarding Israel. This is not the first time Republicans have attempted to add this legislation to the Yemen War Powers legislation. This is a 5-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 194, the nays are 228, one being present. The motion is adopted. The motion is not adopted. The question is on passage of the joint resolution. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. Thank you, Hanson.
A vote now on passage of the Yemen War Powers Resolution ending U.S. military involvement in the civil war in Yemen. This is a bill the Senate passed last month. The White House has threatened it will veto this measure if it's approved here. This would be the second veto issued by the administration. The first was fairly recent on border security legislation. After this,
the yeas are 247, the nays are 175, present is 1. The joint resolution is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.